Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and thank you so much for joining me here this morning on Unfiltered Vision News. I know my voice is a little bit lower than normal, but actually, this is my normal speaking voice. Yeah, my mom is a baritone, so there are times when I sound like Barry White's little sister. It's a thing. So thank you again for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision. So there were some videos that I actually wanted to get to yesterday that I did not get a chance to get to. So I wanted to start out with them this morning. And the first one is our brother Riza Islam. He um, he did another program and it was aired on Alex Jones, but it talks about depopulation. And these are some things that I just want us to be aware of, conscious of, and have an alert to, because a lot of times, we know that, as I discussed last week, that they are putting things in the food and the water. They just are. And these are things that we know, but he goes into a little bit more detail, even though it's high level, about the why. So let's check it out.
You know what? I was going to get to this later when I get into all the race stuff, so that we don't hate each other because we're black or white. So we say no when people are being racial and attacking people, whether it's white on black or black on white. But I noticed, I saw a couple black commentators who I know well who want to get back on the show, and they were explaining the whole depopulation agenda, which is targeting everybody. And that's really the key. And when you cut off a third of the fertilizer production in the last 3 years and food prices explode, here it hurts you or I. In the third world, it kills millions of people. And the UN goes, oh, everybody's starving. We need more money for UNICEF, when they're the ones with the lockdowns, the policies, and cutting off the energy and cutting off the fertilizer. So I've had one of these fellows on the show before. I want to get him back on, but here it is. Depopulation agenda absolutely knocks it out of the park. Here it is.
Depopulation, and what are your thoughts on that as well, Reza? Because I mean, that's been floating around. Some folks say it's rumor, some folks say it's fact.
Ooh, okay.
What's your argument on that?
Well, I'll say this. See, this is the beauty when we deal with actual facts. I'll go straight to the United States government policy. You have what's called the National Security Study Memorandum 200, also known as NSSM 200, which was authorized, written under Dr. Henry Kissinger, who was the 32nd Secretary of State under President Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford. Pardon me, documentation. Now, this is all we go straight to what the U.S. government has stated. He stated, quote, depopulation should be the highest priority of U.S. foreign policy towards the third world, end quote. They literally stated in this documentation that we need to get rid of 2 to 3 billion people on planet Earth. Outside of that, you have something called Global 2000, which was also authorized under Jimmy Carter, outlining how food can be used as a weapon. Outside of that, you had someone by the name of Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was a former advisor to President Jimmy Carter, who stated, quote, in earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people than to physically kill 1 million people. He said, but now it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than it is to control, end quote. So what you're dealing with is the food, the air, the water, reproductive services, Planned Parenthood, and all these different arenas are being used to go towards an effort of getting rid of human beings, black, white, and all in between, by the billions, by a government-sponsored, pharmaceutically sponsored conspiracy. Now, a conspiracy is when 2 or more groups, people, or organizations come together to do something that is evil and or wicked. Conspiracy is a real thing. Conspiracy theory is when you're not sure of what is happening. That's a theory. We're dealing with conspiracy fact, conspiracy documentation, conspiracy organized, calculated schemes that are being conducted by people on high. And guess what? Again, they coming after black and white folks, and all in between. Black folks are number one. Don't ever get it twisted. We are the number one target. But at this point, they are looking at the reality that people are waking up too fast. They didn't expect us to wake up too fast, hence social media being a problem, a gift and a curse. You see what I'm saying? So now that we're waking up so quickly, they didn't expect the masses of humanity to rise up, wake up, become aware of what this government's agenda is. And because of that, now they're trying to figure out exactly how to get rid of people. They said these white folks is waking up. They're coming against us. Their government. Black folks is waking up. They're coming against us. So now at this point, they're like, well, just get rid of them all.
That's actually what Brzezinski said 10 years ago, the CFR. That's Reza Islam. I want to get him back on soon. And we go 24 hours a day, no matter what happens in InfoWars. That's our plan the next 6 months to a year. COVID was the lockdown.
Yeah, and that's actually how I actually found out about Reza. I was watching Alex Jones, and I'm so glad that I came across him. And good morning, Dr. C. She says, good morning, founder. Good morning to you. Yeah, I'm so glad that Reza broke that down. And I'll definitely try to find the link to the document that he was referring to by Kissinger. And the name Brzezinski, if that does sound familiar, that's because his daughter with the last name Brzezinski, she's on Morning Joe. Yeah, that was her dad that implemented and said it would be far easier to kill 1 million people as opposed to just control them. Yeah, that's what we're dealing with, guys. And Jamal, thank you so much for reposting the stream. Now, I know a lot of people are like, wow, you just got it right into it. Yeah, we got to get right into it because I don't have a lot of time to give you guys this information. But I wanted to start off with that mainly because we just need that wake-up call. Like, wake up. They are trying to kill all of us, right? He was like, yeah, black people first. Don't get it twisted. But it's all of us. So no one is safe. So you need to make good choices about who you decide to partner with, right? Because there is going to come a time where we're not going to have the internet. There is going to come a time where we're not going to be connected in the ways that we're connected now. So we need to come up with good game plans. No, this is not fear mongering. This is called proper planning. If you properly plan, right, then you won't fail. But if you fail to plan, yeah, that might be an issue later down the line. Now, there was another video going around on X, and it was very disturbing. But I wanted you guys to check this out.
I want my baby.
Okay, I will
Yes.
press charges
Who-
because
who-
you cannot record us. We have to give consent. It is.
But I
in all
asked
of
you to give
and
me
I
my
said
baby,
right
and I'm
now-
being nice, and you're not
right
letting me be
now,
nice.
for the safety of your baby, because you are very hyped.
I
The
have not-
police are coming.
I
want
hold
the
on a
baby in the
minute. I'm not
nursery.
hype, and I'm not recording. I'm not hype. I said I want you to take your hands off so I can. I call the police, and I just want to leave. That's all I'm saying.
But
You can leave. Baby will have to stay here.
No, the
Baby
baby
stays
cannot
for 24 hours.
1 second. I just had a nurse say that I pushed her, and I didn't push her. I didn't do anything, and I'm asking to leave because I don't feel safe here.
And you
And
can
I'm
leave.
saying that I want you to just take your hands off my baby and
Sandra,
just let
Christina?
me go home with my
Hello?
baby. I just had a C-section.
I know.
That can't be an
Anybody wouldn't be
option
able to
right
go
now.
home with their baby. Not till 24 hours because there has to be
But the
testing
lady,
and all that
the
stuff.
nurse,
I know.
just said that I hit her.
That's
First,
why we're trying to resolve that
I
issue.
did not hit anyone. I'm not a violent person, and I just want to go home with my baby.
The
I don't
baby
feel
has to be
safe.
here for 24 hours.
I understand that, but due to the allegation, I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. So, things like that are also happening in our world and in our country. Now, I didn't experience anything to that degree, but I did have a C-section with my second child. And, you're kind of groggy after you wake up, and I was in the room, and it had been, obviously a few hours after the C-section. So I was, up and alert, and I was like, where's my baby? And she was like, oh, man. I was like, if you don't bring me my baby. Yeah. Like, I know a lot of you are like, okay, founder, you're real buttoned up, man. I was like, I will tear this hospital down. My poor ex-husband at the time, he was like, just calm down. I was like, you know what? I will get you too if you don't go get my baby. Like, I was having like a fit. And then they finally brought me my baby, and the ladies were like, I was like, get out. And if you come back in here, look, I will sue all of you. I will own you and everything you don't have. Bring me my baby. So I can definitely sympathize with what this young lady is going through. And it's terrible to think these things, but there have been instances where they have stolen people's children and said that their baby died and don't bring their babies' bodies to them because they sold their babies or harvested their organs. Like there's just sick people that work at hospitals, and we need to root them out. So if you come across anything like this, make sure you post it. Make sure that you file complaints against these nurses and these doctors in these hospitals. Because I'm telling you right now, we unfortunately live in a horrifically scary world, and people don't care. They're about money. They do not care about their fellow man and humans like they are supposed to. And the nurses on the control trip, that I'm just telling you, there are some nurses that are really horrible. There's some that are really great, but there's some that are really horrible. So I'm really hoping that got resolved and, that she was able to go home with her baby or at least be transferred to a different wing of the hospital and feel safe, with a different set of nurses and doctors. Because that's really, really sad. And Swami, thank you so much for joining us this morning and reposting the stream. Now, this next video we're going to get into, this is about some new standards put in place in Oklahoma. And I just want to know what you guys think about it.
Oklahoma just did. They're now the first state in the country to roll out an America First certification test, and it's specifically for teachers coming from states like California and New York. Yes, if you're a teacher moving to Oklahoma from a blue state, you're going to need to pass this test before you can teach. It covers a lot of things like American history, civics, the Constitution, and yes, basic biology. The idea is simple. If you're going to teach kids in Oklahoma, you need to understand and support the values that built this country. And no, it's not about party politics. It's about truth, responsibility, and respect for this nation's foundations. Oklahoma Education Chief Ryan Walters said they're not going to let radical agendas sneak into the classroom. They're partnering with groups like PragerU to make sure teachers are well versed in what they call common sense civics. And honestly, they're saying a lot of people are applauding this, and I can see why, because it's common sense. Because if you're leaving a state where the educational system is crumbling, maybe it makes sense to check if your teaching lines up with the values of a new place you're moving to. This isn't about banning people. This is about raising the bar. But let's be real quick. Would you want your kids learning from someone who doesn't believe in the basics? Oklahoma just drew a line in the sand, and I'm so hoping that all the other states will follow. So here's the real question. Do you think this will start a trend? I sure hope so.
Yeah, I mean, do you guys think so? I mean, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with a trend like that. Mainly, look, mainly because it is common sense. Biology is what it is. You can't, become an ornate toaster, even though they're trying. They're trying. And it's sad that educators don't want to educate. They want to indoctrinate. They just do not want humans that are self-sufficient. They want an army of anarchists and people who hate the country that they live in, but reap all of its benefits. They want them confused about their gender, so they will depopulate the planet themselves, right? They don't have to necessarily put anything in the food or water, because if they are not going to reproduce, eventually they will die off. I mean, this is a very interesting time that we are living in, because we actually have educators that do not realize that they are a part of the depopulation agenda. You cannot teach humans, or, I should say, you're not teaching humans. I'll put it that way. You're indoctrinating them. But you believe that by, being an activist and a teacher, you're actually helping them, and you're not. You are destroying their lives. And you shouldn't be teachers. Your licenses actually should be pulled. You know, Oklahoma is nice given the test. I'd be like, if you are from any of these states, you can't work here. Period. It'd be like, you can't be here. That's discrimination. No, it's not. You can actually refuse licenses from other states. You can. But that's why they have the test, right? Because it's like, if you fail the test, then you definitely can't work in their school system. But I would just deny it. And I'd be like, let's take it to the Supreme Court. You can be denied because we can say, okay, our levels are here, your state's there. You can't transfer over here unless you're going to go through the proper procedures here. And if you fall out of line, then we'll just revoke your license. Period. What do you want to do? But I guess that's why they're putting the test in place. I wouldn't let them. I wouldn't let them. I've seen what's happened to Texas, and people moving from California to Texas have almost destroyed Texas, and it's sad that's happening, but it's happening. Oh, riddle me this. Thank you so much for reposting the stream, and guys, thank you so much for joining me this morning. And so now we're going to get into it. Yes, we are on this Women and Wellness Wednesday going to get into what is happening in Texas. Oh my goodness. I know you guys have seen this. I know you have seen the lawmakers, and we did talk about it a little bit on the show yesterday, where these people are interesting. They fled the state. Some went to New York, some went to Illinois, and they left on a jet that cost $1,500 an hour, which is crazy. They only make like $600 a month, but they're being fined $500 a day, and they're still gone. Nobody's running back. Everybody's like, we're not making that much money. But let's see. It's Wednesday. It looks like $1,500. So you've spent 3 months of your salary in 3 days. And nobody's running back like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. Interesting crowd.
Is they thought that they were going to put that terrible map on the floor tomorrow in the House and get it passed, and they are not going to be able to pass that map on the House floor tomorrow. So I'm really excited, really proud.
Yeah, so by now, I'm sure you have heard about these Texas Democrats who have fled the state of Texas in order to avoid a very crucial vote. Well, what you're looking at here is some documentation. It's a request to the FBI to assist Texas. Basically, it's been requested for the FBI to take any appropriate action in working with Texas, either to arrest these members of government or to locate these members of government to bring them back to Texas.
Now is not the time for one party to play by the rules while the other party has completely ignored them.
And of course, the DNC, they are pointing the fingers back to Republicans and saying, you guys are the ones breaking the rules. So we are going to dig into all of these brand new developments. Now, before we start the video, make sure to please like the video. It's the #1 way you guys are helping this channel, but it also helps others see the videos as well, and people need to know what's going on with the FBI possibly arresting these members of government.
Well, Sean, first of all, Texas is doing what we are allowed to by the law. And one reason why that law exists the way that it does is because the Democrats brought a lawsuit after our last redistricting, and that decision and that lawsuit came out last year. And that lawsuit recognized that coalition districts are not required. And so Texas has a right to redraw these lines to fully represent the desires of every voter in the state. But Sean, that misses the point here. The point here is that Democrats have done something that's very un-Texan. They've turned their backs on their fellow Texans. When it came to a fight, they turned and ran away, not just from this redistricting fight, they ran away from dealing with the flooding issues that are still echoing across the Kerrville area. Families desperately need results from the state legislature in this 30-day special session that are not going to be delivered because Democrats are hanging out in Chicago and New York and other places.
Okay, so there's a lot going on right now. Before we even get to the FBI possibly arresting or finding these Democrats, let's talk about this because this could be just as worse. Basically, you have Attorney General Ken Paxton. He's saying he will seek judicial orders declaring that runaway Democrats who abandoned their legislative duties vacated their office. Basically meaning you will be fired and replaced. But they have until Friday to come back to avoid any of this.
Members, under the rules, while the House is under a call, any member who wishes to leave the hall must have written permission of the Speaker. The Chair is providing written permission to be entered in the journal for each member registered as present on today's roll call to leave the chamber and return tomorrow at 1 p.m. Please return at the appointed time. Mr. Guerin moves that the House stand adjourned until 1 p.m. Tuesday. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and the House stands adjourned.
Okay, real quick, before we continue, make sure to please subscribe to my channel so I can keep you guys up to date with this story, because if the FBI actually starts going after Democrats, that's going to be huge, and I don't want you to miss that. Thank you so much. So, Texas already approved arrest warrants, they already approved fines for these Democrats, but they're still not coming back. As I make this video, the deadline has already originally passed, and it looks like they're giving them more time, Democrats more time to come back. But regardless, the situation has escalated because now we have the FBI possibly involved. Okay, so here's the letter to the FBI. I write to encourage the FBI to take any appropriate steps to aid in Texas state law enforcement efforts to locate or arrest potential lawbreakers who have fled the state. You go down some more, their stated goal was to prevent the legislator from properly meeting in violation of their oath of office. By leaving the state of Texas, these legislators intended to prevent the existence of a quorum in the Texas House of Representatives. Without a quorum, no legislative activity can proceed.
I'm a lawyer. A part of my practice is criminal defense work. There is no felony in the Texas Penal Code for what he says. So respectfully, he's making up some shit, okay? He's trying to get sound bites, and he has no legal mechanism. And
that's the thing. Before the FBI were requested, this is absolutely true. There was no way that Texas could enforce these subpoenas or warrants if they are across state lines. And this is why these Democrats felt very confident a day ago when this clip was filmed. Like, hey, what are you going to do? We're in New York, we're in Illinois, we are protected, and we have the money to pay these fines. But check this out.
He did. Subpoenas from Texas don't work in New York. So he gonna come get us how? Subpoenas in Texas don't work in Chicago. He's going to come get us how? So let me be clear. He's putting up smoke and mirrors. And I'm hopeful that the media doesn't follow that. I will also say this.
And everything has officially escalated considering Texas is aware they're going to need some federal help if they're going to want to go after these Democrats who are across state lines. Thus, this is why the FBI has been requested to possibly go after these Democrats who are in New York and Illinois who don't comply and don't come back to work. Now, I think you'll find this interesting. Here's what the governor of New York had to say about this situation.
These brave public servants are taking a stand, a strong stand, against a blatant power grab that's happening in their state as we speak. And this will have implications, not just in Texas, but for our entire nation and its future.
Basically, there are Democrats in California, in New York, and they are saying, look, if Texas does what they do, then we're going to start redrawing the lines as well.
Newsflash for Republicans in Texas. This is no longer the Wild West. We're not going to tolerate our democracy being stolen in a modern-day stagecoach hoist by a bunch of law-breaking cowboys. Americans don't want a system that's...
It's very stereotypical coming from the governor of New York there. If I was from Texas, I'd be a little offended.
...stacked against them. They believe in fairness. It's fundamental. Rigging the system is un-American. But here they are, flagrantly breaking the rules so they can hold on to power. With that power, they're going to inflict even more pain. But here in New York, we will not stand on the sidelines with the timid souls who don't care, will not invest their their heart and soul into this battle. And that's why the gloves are off, and I say, bring it on.
Now, those do sound like threats or fighting words, but I'm going to be honest with you, I have no idea how exactly New York plans on defending or fighting back Texas. No idea at all. Maybe you can leave your comments down below, other than possibly harboring these Democrats who are hiding in the state.
What is the issue? Why did they leave?
So they're leaving and they've left because they're very un-Texan. Texans don't run from a fight. And there's a fight going on in the legislature right now about redistricting as well as other things. But I'll make two quick points, Dana, about this. For one, to run to states like New York and Illinois to protest redistricting is kind of like running to Wisconsin to protest cheese. It's just kind of outrageous.
This is like the #1 critique coming from everybody about these Democrats, as far as finding this absolutely ridiculous. If you're going to run away from a state, why would you go to a state who's doing the exact same thing or has already done the exact same thing you guys are against?
New York and Illinois are two hallmark states that have already done redistricting to eliminate Republicans. But the second thing is far more serious, and that is what these Democrats have done. Just a small fraction of them were needed to break a quorum, and that small fraction is holding hostage legislation in the state of Texas where we will be able to provide assistance and reform for all of the victims of that horrific flooding that we've had in the state of Texas. Our fellow Texans are being let down and not getting the flood relief they need because these Democrats have absconded from the responsibility, and I believe they have forfeited their seats in the state legislature because they are not doing the job they were elected to do.
Now, I think you'll find this interesting. Even on CNN, some of the news anchors are like, hey, this is not the best move. I mean, these Democrats eventually have to come back. And again, we have Democrats who are saying this is the bravest thing ever. Well, of course they're saying what those Democrats are doing is brave because they might not get arrested or lose their job, you know, things like that.
But ultimately they have to come back, do they not? And they'll have to vote? Isn't that the ultimate scenario, the reality of the situation, that they're going to have to come back to Texas eventually?
Well, sure. They live in Texas and they're Texans. But what they're doing right now is spreading the word across the country about what's happening in Texas because so many people don't know. Our legislature had adjourned. The governor called a special session just a couple of weeks ago. A lot of Texans don't even know this is happening. But when they find out, they are angry.
Well, they should have stayed in Texas and let their people know as a representative of the taxpayers. Because right now, these taxpayers are being represented in New York and Illinois.
And we saw thousands of people showing up to testify against the proposed changes that have been handed down from Washington. We know that Texans don't like this. So the more people hear about it and the more they know, it's not too late to change course. I mean, this is one of the questions. Everyone's saying about Democrats.
Congresswoman, it sounds like this is a messaging thing. This is not a real reality that you can actually change the law. Really, you guys are...
And again, this is the law. We're not really here to argue the morality, whether or not you like it. This is literally just the law.
This is a messaging.
Well,
some would say stunt.
But it's not just messaging. And that's the thing. I mean, one of the things is that this gives people time to call their legislators, especially the Republicans who are being asked to vote on this map, this bill, and say no, right? Governor Abbott doesn't have to pass the bill. He doesn't have to take orders from President Trump. And that's what Texans are saying. They don't want President Trump making these decisions for Texans and taking over Texas. And the more they hear from their constituents, they should respond to them.
For anybody who lives in a Democrat state as a Republican, could you imagine if your Republican representatives left the state? The media machine would absolutely destroy them. And I know for a fact the majority of conservatives and Republicans would be so upset that you left. Especially like California or New York, where you know as a Republican, you are not represented. But just to know that there's at least some representation out there is good. But now these guys just fled the state.
The U.S. Constitution...
Sir, let me ask the question. You are clearly making the argument that this needs to happen for political reasons. That because your argument is Democrats have gerrymandered, therefore Republicans must also gerrymander. Why not get rid of gerrymandering altogether and actually put the power in the hands of voters to make the republic more efficient?
Well, I actually think we are trying to make the maps more representative. And here's the reality. The United States Constitution and the Constitution of the great state of Texas absolutely allows us to undergo this type of redistricting effort. So we're doing something that's completely legal, it's completely constitutional, and I'm doing everything I can in my power as an elected member of the state of Texas to make sure that the state of Texas does everything in its power to make sure that Republicans hold on to a majority in the United States Congress. It's as simple as that. That's completely legal. It's totally permissible. The United States Supreme
And Republicans are not denying, look, we know what we're doing, and we also want to hold power on the federal level as well.
Court has said so on multiple occasions. Quite frankly, we should have.
But you're about to see how the CNN news anchor did not know that this Texas representative actually brought some receipts to show how there's a little bit of hypocrisy here and maybe some made-up anger. Because again, these Democrats are hiding in states which have already done this, so why all of a sudden are people upset?
Done this during the regular session and had this in the rearview mirror by now.
So then is your objection against Pritzker or Newsom doing the same thing purely that it doesn't advantage your party? That's not consistent.
No, I've never said something like that. You're putting words in my mouth. My objection,
you're pointing the finger at them,
isn't that he's not allowed to do it. My objection is the rank hypocrisy and dishonesty of what he's saying. I'm going to hold this up. Can you see this? Do you see this? I want Pritzker. Did y'all have him on to explain Illinois 13, this pinky-sized finger that goes across the entire state that was 100% drawn for partisan political purposes? But I haven't seen anybody at CNN or pretty much any of the other major networks bringing him on, or the Democrats and his legislator that drew a map with districts that are far more gerrymandered than anything that the House, that the Texas maps that we're contemplating look like here today. So it's
I advise you, go look up what the map looks like in Illinois. I swear, it looks like a kid just like, yep, that's blue, and that's blue, and that's blue. And I think this CNN news anchor kind of got caught. Like, oh, you know what? You're right. In Illinois, it does look like that. So I don't even know what they're arguing about here. Everybody else who seems to be understanding what's going on is this, that in all of these other Democrat states, this happens all the time. Now, all of a sudden, we have an issue in Texas where, hey, whoa, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be doing that. You're breaking the rules. You're breaking the law. So now these Democrats say, you know what? I know what to do. I'm going to flee.
Hypocrisy, that's my problem, and the dishonesty and the faux outrage. They're not mad that states are redistricting for partisan purposes. They're mad that a Republican state is doing it.
Yeah, I don't think these people are actually upset. There's no way, because this is legal to do this.
I would welcome Governor Pritzker to come on our program and talk about his congressional maps, but I'm asking you about yours, and there are some funny-looking ones in Texas. Sir, I'm having a conversation with you right now.
Why haven't you asked him about it? These maps were approved 2 years ago.
He's more than welcome to come on CNN, but I'm having a conversation with you about the...
He's not coming on CNN.
...funny-looking districts that you've drawn in Texas, and it doesn't seem like you object to the idea of gerrymandering to begin with. Why not bring in an independent, nonpartisan council to help you draw lines that actually are representative of the folks in your state? Because
unfortunately, we have found out in today's day and age, to find people who don't care, nonpartisan, it's just literally not a thing. As humans, we are, I don't want to say flawed, we are flawed, but in the sense of it's impossible to not have a bias. So I don't think anyone trusts that this process of we're going to be nonpartisan, we're going to be independent, especially with Doge and Elon Musk coming in behind the scenes with government. We now know this is unfortunately not a thing. I think that would be an awesome plan, but at the same time, it's just not possible anymore.
As you know, Texas isn't purely red. There are a lot of Democratic voters there.
You want some nonpartisan bureaucrat, some new government council, and you were asking me just a minute ago about my concerns about circumventing the will of the voters. The voters, the 30 million voters of the state of...
Yeah, that's a really good point. Hey, the majority of Texas is a Republican, but let's come in and make it 50-50 now. That point didn't even make any sense.
Texas elected me and 149 other colleagues. It's called the elected representatives in the People's House of Representatives. What you're talking about would be one of the biggest ways you could possibly circumvent.
He wanted to say one of the dumbest ways. I know he did.
And silence the will of the voters, as opposed to what I'm proposing, which is saying let the people's elected representatives roll up their sleeves and do the hard work of legislating. Let us vote on the maps.
Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, there's new developments and new information coming in.
And I'll definitely let you guys see that YouTuber that, I thought it was a great explanation. And I wanted to thank everybody for reposting the stream. Black Empower, Sassy Lady, and Sassy Lady wants everybody to know good morning. And she's so cute. She says, run away. I know, right? Texas crazy. And good morning, Dr. Nichols. Well, good morning to you, Sassy Lady. Thank you for joining us. And Patty Cakes, thank you so much for reposting the stream. Well, I had a few questions. I was like, has this ever happened with Republicans? Have they actually just like left, like, cut tail and run? Let's see. So apparently, that was a question I asked. I said, in the United States history, have Republican state representatives fled the state to avoid a voting session? And said, yes, Republican state legislators in U.S. history have fled their states to block legislative votes by denying quorum. And here are some key examples. So in Oregon in 2019, all 11 Republican state senators walked out of the Oregon State Senate, some even crossing state lines to prevent a vote on a major cap and trade climate bill. Their absence denied the chamber the required quorum, effectively stopping the measure. So they wanted to stop a climate bill. Now, this was not about redistricting. Okay, I just wanted to find out, like, have Republicans ever, pulled this? I look at it as a stunt. So during the Civil War, Republicans so this was 1863. Okay. So during the Civil War, Republicans in the Indiana General Assembly struck a Democrat posse. They fled the legislature to prevent a pro-Confederate and anti-union legislation from passing. So Governor Oliver Morton went on to govern without a legislature, raising funds via private and federal support. So those are the two instances that it brought up, right? Just looking at those. But it says other similar tactics by Democrats. Legislative walkouts have been deployed by Democratic lawmakers too. Notable cases, Indiana in 2011. So that's a little bit more, not super recent, but recent enough. So Democratic legislators bolted to Illinois to block right-to-work bills, negotiating concessions like removal of key items from the legislative agenda. That's interesting. It's like, why would you leave on a right-to-work bill, right? Because you don't want people to be able to get fired? or on the other hand, leave a job if they don't want to be there. That's what right to work allows. It allows both parties to literally walk away without any fault, basically. It's like a no fault session when you're talking about work. Now, Wisconsin, 2011, Democratic state senators fled to Illinois. Why is everybody fleeing to Illinois? So crazy. I know it's close. That's probably why. To stall changes on public union rights under Governor Scott Walker. Wow, you see, y'all messing with people's lives, fleeing the state. Okay, Democrats. In Texas in 2003 and 2021. So this isn't the first time Democratic lawmakers have done this. Okay, 2003 and as early as 2021. So 4 years ago, they did this. So in 2003, Democratic legislators in both chambers fled to Oklahoma and New Mexico to stop redistricting efforts, though Republicans eventually pushed through their agenda. And in 2021, Texas House Democrats fled the state to block passage of voting restriction laws, temporarily derailing the special session. So that means that it still went through at some point, but yeah. So, yeah. Interesting. So the takeaway here was, yes, there are historic precedents where Republican state legislators in the U.S. have fled their states specifically to avoid voting on legislation, most notably Oregon in 2019 and Indiana during the Civil War. While it's far more common for the minority party, often Democrats, to employ such tactics in modern times, Republicans have also used it in high-stakes legislative standoffs. So it's not that it's something not used by both parties. So I don't want people just like, all those Democrats. It's like, Republicans have done it too. They just don't use it as often, right? And it's the way you use it, right? So I said, has this happened regarding redistricting? And I was like, all right. It says, yes, Republican legislatures have fled the state to block redistricting legislation, though such incidents are far rarer than Democratic walkouts over redistricting. So the Democrats cry a lot more than the Republicans. The most notable examples of state lawmakers fleeing their state over redistricting involved Democrats, particularly in Texas in 2003 and in Oregon in 2020 and 2021. But Republicans have also employed this tactic primarily in Oregon. So in 2020 and 2021, the Republican walkouts, they were state senators, and to block legislation, including redistricting plans that would have given Democrats more control over drawing congressional and legislative maps. So it would have given them control over drawing the maps, right? And so the tactics in February 2020, the GOP senators left the state to block a climate bill, but redistricting was a looming issue and part of a broader pattern. So they kind of, they'd be like, oh, it's because of climate. It was like, no, there was some redistricting in there as well. In 2021, Republicans again walked out and negotiated to have equal representation on the redistricting committee. When the agreement was later dissolved by Democrats, Republicans accused them of breaking the deal. So it's unfortunate, but in that situation in Oregon, the Democrats proved that they can't be trusted. So who do you care more about, party or power? I mean, that's what it really, really comes down to. Before I get into this, with Texas, with the redistricting that they're doing right now, and I actually got to talk to somebody on another podcast I'm on with, and he lives in Texas. The 5 districts that they're adding are actually majority minorities. So they are Hispanic and Black American districts that the GOP is adding, and there's 5 of them. So it does give more minority representation. It just happens to be the GOP. And that's an if, right? Because let's just say they do this redistricting and those individuals there decide to vote Democrat. Then it's no longer Republican. It's still up to the people in those districts. Just because something is parceled out to be a certain way doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. Like that weird line that they showed in Illinois, which is really weird. It's like, okay, we're just going to get all this consolidated dense population so we can, carry the votes, because that's where, Democrats are, and we're just going to scoop up these votes so we can win whatever we want to. What if that flips red? All of it. All of it. What if the upper corner in Illinois that's blue flips all red? What happens? What are you going to be mad at the voters because they're not voting for you anymore? I'm just saying that could happen. It's still left up to the voters, even if the maps are drawn the way they're drawn. So Democratic redistricting walkouts for comparison. So in Texas, we talked about that in 2003. So 50 Texas House Democrats and 11 Senate Democrats, they walked out. And why? To block a Republican redistricting plan pushed by Tom DeLay, which aimed to redraw congressional maps mid-decade to favor the GOP. Okay, so this was done 22 years ago. So this isn't the first time that these Democrats have done this. And the tactics, House Democrats fled to Oklahoma and Senate Democrats fled to New Mexico. Both actions were aimed at denying quorum. Now, I can understand them going to Oklahoma because those are neighboring states, right? That literally are their neighbors. Oklahoma's north, New Mexico's west. Okay. What are y'all doing in New York and Illinois? It's weird. Okay. So it says, in conclusion, yes, Republican state legislators have fled to avoid redistricting votes, particularly in Oregon, while Democratic walkouts like Texas in 2003 were well known for redistricting battles. Republicans have also taken similar actions when they believed the process was unfair or partisan. Okay, so I said, for Democrats in 2003, did this tactic help them? And what were the results? It says there's my ChatGPT is kind of funny. It's a great question. So the 2003 Democratic walkout over redistricting was Democratic, but ultimately unsuccessful in preventing the new maps from being passed. So here's what happened and what it achieved or failed to achieve. So for context, what prompted the walkout after Republicans took full control of the Texas state government in 2002, including the Texas House for the first time since Reconstruction. Wow. That is intense. So 2002 was the first time that they had taken. Wow. That's intense. Okay. So U.S. House Majority Leader Tom DeLay pushed for mid-decade redistricting. Texas had already been redistricted after the 2000 census. So it was like 2 years after the census, they were like, we just did this. We just did the maps. He was like, let's do it again. Right? I'm like, okay. But DeLay wanted new maps to favor Republicans and flip more congressional seats. Democrats accused the GOP of abusing power for partisan gain and disrupting the norm of redistricting only once per decade. So the walkout tactic in May through July 2003, in May of 2003, 51 Democrats walked out, fled to Ardmore, Oklahoma to deny the quorum. This blocked the intentional redistricting plan during the regular session. In July of 2003, a second special session was called. 11 Democratic senators fled to Albuquerque, New Mexico, again to break quorum and stop the vote. So these were each done. One was during the regular session, one was during the special session. Okay, and then Texas Governor Rick Perry kept calling special sessions trying to force the vote. So outcome, did it work? No. The walkout did not stop the redistricting. So by September 2003, enough Democrats had returned or been pressured back. The Texas Senate passed the redistricting bill and the House soon followed. The new congressional maps were signed into law and used in the 2004 elections. Okay, so nothing. So I did that because I was like, okay, what is the end result here? Well, the end result in that situation was they still had to comply. So political consequences for the Republicans' victory, they flipped 6 congressional seats in the 2004 elections. This helped solidify Republican control in Congress in Texas for the next 2 decades. Okay, so for Democrats, a short-term loss, the map diluted Democratic voting power, especially in urban and minority districts. Several long-term Democrat U.S. representatives, Martin Frost, lost their seats. So they have a bigger chance of losing. Now, the legal aftermath, the case went to the Supreme Court in League of United Latin American Citizens versus Perry. That was in 2006. The ruling, the court upheld most of the redistricting, but said District 23 violated the Voting Rights Act because it diluted Latino votes. That single district had to be withdrawn, but the rest of the map remained intact. Okay, so even if this goes, it doesn't mean that the maps might be redrawn. So one out of all of the map. Yeah. So then I asked another question. Said, so why is gerrymandering important to both parties? And what is the true definition of gerrymandering? Because I know a lot of people hear it, we talk about it, it's a buzzword. And I just really want to, make sure that we have that true understanding. So, gerrymandering is the manipulation of electoral district boundaries to benefit a particular political party, group, or class. The practice of drawing the boundaries of electoral districts in a way that gives one political party an unfair advantage over its rivals. Okay, plain and simple. That's when you say gerrymandering. Okay. So the origin of the word, named after Eldridge Gerry, governor of Massachusetts in 1812, who signed a bill that redistricted the state to benefit his party. One of the districts looked like a salamander, so a political cartoon man labeled it gerrymander. Wow. Interesting. Oh, hey, Cajun lady, thank you so much for reposting the stream. But I just wanted to give us a little bit of background on gerrymandering. What happens, it secures political power. It maximizes electoral advantage. It dilutes the opponent's votes. It concentrates on voters, controls legislative agendas, and shapes national elections. So the tactics used in gerrymandering are packing, concentrate opposition voters in a few districts, excuse me, to reduce their influence elsewhere. Cracking, spread opposition voters across many districts to dilute their impact. Hijacking, redraw lines to put two opposing incumbents into the same district. Kidnapping, move a popular incumbent's home into a new district with unfamiliar voters. And that kind of happened with Jasmine Crockett, because she says, right now I don't live in my district the way the lines were redrawn. She doesn't. She lives right outside of her district. I mean, so she's got a choice. I don't know if she has a house or not, but she can move to be back in the district she's in, or she could stay where she is, because a lot of federal House representatives do not live in the district that they serve. They don't. Some do, some don't. But I'm like, wow, that's interesting. But these are the tactics that are used, right? So a real world example, in North Carolina in 2016, Republicans drew congressional maps that gave them 10 out of 13 seats, even though the statewide vote was almost 50-50. A GOP legislature even admitted, we want to make 10 Republican seats because we do not believe it's possible to draw an 11-2 map. That's interesting. So, pro-reform advocates say gerrymandering undermines democracy and voter choice. Status quo defenders say redistricting is a political process, not for courts. In the Supreme Court ruling in Rucho versus Common Cause in 2019, SCOTUS ruled that partisan gerrymandering is a political question and can't be solved by federal courts. So this isn't even a federal court issue. So they could take it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will be like, why are you here? Like, stop it. Why are you here? Go back to your state and figure it out. Fight it out. Figure it out. So independent redistricting commissions, algorithmic mapping, proportional representation, compactness, and community preservation rules. Those are the possible reforms. So gerrymandering is a high-stakes political tool used by both major parties to entrench power, shape policy, and control elections at every level. It's legal in many forms, though increasingly challenged by courts and reformers. It matters because it determines who gets to represent whom and how much your vote counts. So I say, can they be arrested or fined? I really want to do that question. It says yes. State legislatures who flee to block a vote can face arrest or fines, but only under certain conditions, and it varies by state law and legislative rules. So, legal and constitutional authority, arrest power for quorum. So most state constitutions, like the U.S. constitutions, include provisions allowing a sergeant at arms or state police or to compel the attendance of absent members. So U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 5, a smaller number may adjourn from day to day and may be authorized to compel the attendance of absent members in such manner and under such penalties as each house may provide. So examples in states, Texas, most notable example in 2021, Democratic lawmakers fled to D.C. to block a vote on voting restrictions. Governor Greg Abbott threatened them with arrest upon return to Texas. The Texas House authorized the sergeant at arms to issue civil arrest warrants to compel attendance. Some lawmakers were escorted to the chamber by state police, but not jailed or criminally charged. Important. This was a civil arrest, not a criminal one. It's used to restore quorum, not punish. And you just saw in that video, that's why I showed it, where, they're kind of doing it again, but now they're using the FBI. Yeah. I'm like, okay, that's what we're doing. Like before, you just used like the people from Texas. And now you use the state police. Now you're using the federal police. And see, they didn't think you were going to pull the federal trigger. I don't really think they did. In Wisconsin, Democratic state senators fled to Illinois to stop a vote on union rights. Governor Scott Walker and the GOP withheld lawmakers' pay and revoked staff resources as punishment. No arrests were made since they were outside of Wisconsin's jurisdiction, right? So just like Texas, it's civil penalty, but you can't arrest them. Now, in Oregon, Republican senators walked out multiple times. The governor threatened to have them arrested. State police were ordered to find them, but GOP senators crossed state lines. Oregon eventually passed a law fining absent lawmakers $325 per day for unexcused absences, effective in 2022. So there are penalties. I want to say for Texas right now, it's like $500 a day. They're being penalized, and they only make $600 a month. Yeah. Okay. So penalties may include civil arrest, criminal charges, fines, loss of pay, benefits, and censure or expulsion. So that's rare. It's rare and extreme, but but it's a political consequence. And that's something that they were asking, can you have these individuals removed, stating because they vacated their seats, and have them replaced with somebody else if they don't show up in a reasonable amount of time. But they can be arrested. But can they be arrested across state lines? No, not forcibly. Civil arrest powers don't apply in other states. So if lawmakers flee the state, like Illinois or New Mexico, local law enforcement won't arrest them unless they're violating another law, right? So in summary, yes, legislatures can be arrested or fined under civil legislative authority if they flee to block a quorum. So civil arrest within their state is legal. Across state lines, no. Fines for absence, that's legal. Criminal prosecution, no, because it's still a civil matter. But I just wanted to bring that up to you guys because I was like, wow, they are really pushing this issue. It is really a lot of political theater right now. But at the end of the day, does it really show your constituents that you care about them? Because as Greg Abbott said, the reason why the special session was called is because they've had 2 major floods in the state of Texas, and they need their state legislatures, House and Senate, to pass measures to help them. Not everything comes down from the federal government. And even if something does come from the federal government, it still has to be voted on and disseminated at the state level down to the local level, right? Which are your counties and your cities. So these legislatures, they've got a big job to do, but they need to get their job done. So with that, we'll take a quick break And I'll see you guys on the other side.
At All Sides, we believe all sides, we give bias ratings for hundreds of media outlets. By freeing people from filter bubbles and providing different perspectives, we can all be better equipped to understand the world and each other. So how do we do it?
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and we are doing today our Women in Wellness segment. Yes. So today is our Women in Wellness. And, I like to bring people on to definitely share things that we can be doing to definitely improve our lives in that space. Today, I have some special guests. One is not a woman, but I think it's still okay because I wanted to share something with you. I know if you guys have been following me, maybe for the past few months, you've seen a commercial that I air, and it's X39. And it's this little round patch. And so I really wanted to bring two people on that introduced me to X39 and LifeWave so they could share a little bit more about the product. So let me bring them up now. Hey, how are you guys doing?
Hello. Hi,
Doing
Shaq.
wonderful. How are you?
Good, good. So please, one at a time, you can introduce yourselves, tell our audience, who you are, where they can follow you, and then we'll get into our conversation about the patch.
Awesome. Well, my name is Nisha Hilliard, and you can actually follow me on Facebook. Nisha Hilliard, as NICHAHILLIARD. And also on Instagram, Nisha_Hilliard. I'm also a professional singer and a part-time actress, but that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
My name is Reggie Stewart here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm here to just share a little bit of information about this incredible patch that Dr. Ashaki just talked about. And this is a patch that's truly cutting edge. So we want to make sure that everyone has a clear understanding of exactly what the patch is and the purpose of it, because our health is very, very important. And this is sort of groundbreaking.
Okay. And where can people find or follow you?
You can follow me on Facebook at Facebook.com/Reg T. Stewart. And also my email address is stewart.reggie@ymail.com.
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. So I know that Nisha introduced me to the patch, but I wanted you both to, in short order, if you could just share with the audience who shared the patch with you.
Well, I have to say this gentleman right on here with us, Mr. Reggie Stewart, shared this patch with me. This was back in January 2023. And I was actually doing a performance in Duluth. And so he, during my break, he asked me the question about what do I know about stem cells? And I absolutely knew nothing about it. And so he said, well, do you know anyone that has, any type of pain or any type of, discomfort in any, area of their bodies? And yeah, you're talking to one. So I'm very grateful that he brought this to my attention because I was really having some bad knee pain. You're talking after a performance because I have to wear high heels a lot.
Right.
Going up and down the stairs was painful for me. I mean, I'm talking about crying pain. And so when he introduced the patch to me, that was totally a godsend. I mean, it was like God was answering my prayer. And I wanted something that was non-invasive, nothing that was going into the skin. And when I tried that patch on, I mean, it was like my pain went away within a few hours, and it has not come back.
Nice.
I've been on the patch for over 2 years now.
Nice. That is awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so glad to hear that. And Reggie, how did you find out about the patch?
Okay, great question. Just as you heard Nisha, I think this is the nature of our business. We often know people who have pain and discomfort, and a good friend of mine actually shared it with me. And that's how it works, because most people, either they're directly connected to pain themselves or they know someone who is. And not just pain, but also chronic diseases, various health issues. And as a result of understanding, that this patch does some incredible things as from a health standpoint, I was excited because I had a knee issue also. I thought I was going to have knee replacement surgery.
Wow.
And when I received the patches, within about 3 or 4 days wearing the patches, the pain started to subside. And you only wear one patch every 12 hours, right? Every other 12 hours. So once a day for 12 hours at a time. So anyway, I started wearing the patch. And after the third day, very little bit on 3-4 days later. So to me, that was significant. And that is when I began to realize what we had our hands on. And then I started sharing it with my family, my friends, and everybody I came in contact with. And that was 2.5 years ago that I first was approached with this.
Wow,
And
that
today,
is really awesome.
I don't have a knee issue, and I don't have the knee issue, and neither am I limping or experiencing that excruciating pain that was connected to that knee issue.
Oh, that's awesome. And that is amazing. And that's, kind of proof of how it works. I know that I've gone to some different meetings myself because you guys, like I said, introduced me to the patch, and I've seen how it works. I do have scoliosis and I've had surgery. And for me, what's happened is I have more feeling, in parts of my back that I just didn't have feeling in before, where it was numb. So I know that it does work, right? It definitely does work. And the other thing I also found out is that our new director of HHS, he also wears the patch. I've seen some pictures of RFK wearing the patch. I do talk about him a little bit on the program and just what he's doing just to try to make us more healthy as a society. So if there was anything that you would want the world to know about the patch, what would that be?
Well, first of all, I would like for everyone to know that it's for everybody. It's not, there's no target or niche market. There's no specific person or condition because of the incredible technology that's associated with the patch, being that it literally allows our bodies to heal itself because of the technology involved in reactivating our body's own stem cells. That is it in a nutshell. Many times that becomes almost unheard of or unbelievable because it is unheard of. This is cutting edge technology. There are studies, the product has been around now for 5 years, and there's a 20-year patent on it. So that means 15 years are left on that patent. So for people who are really wanting to understand the power of this, all they have to do is wear the patch.
Okay. And Nisha, what would you like to share?
As Nisha said, it is none of themselves, and that's what we also offer. Now that turns into an incredible opportunity for so many people.
Yes, I just love the fact that it's just this one little patch, and I'm gonna show it to you. I don't have it, but I have it on the back of my neck. You can see it.
Yeah, we can see it. Okay.
One little patch that I wear on the back of my neck, for the most part, every day. And it's just amazing. I mean, David Schmidt is the CEO and the inventor of this patch, and you can look him up. I mean, this company has been around. LifeWave is the name of the company. It's been around for 21 years now. And he came out with this patch, just like what Reggie said, in 2020. And so what he came up with this patch is just extraordinary. I mean, it's amazing. Not only that, this patch that I've noticed, even for me, when I wore it, that I noticed my energy level was awesome. I mean, it was doing a lot of healing in my body. I mean, I had bleeding of the gums. I was on asthma medication. I'm no longer on asthma medication. We're talking about, when the pollen season comes out, and you know how your eyes be like, and you're itching and all. None of that. And so it responds to, and is very systemic to your body, your own body stem cells.
Right.
And so I can't tell you what it's going to do for you, or whatnot. Just wear the patch. Once you put the patch on, that's where things start to happen. And I tell people it's like a Christmas light has just went off in your body, and it's just like, okay, you start noticing different things that your body is healing, which is what God designed our bodies to do naturally, is to heal. And so this patch allows that to happen. And that's what I love about it. And that is nothing that's going in your body, because I'm all about, natural, ways of healing. And so, when my grandmother, God rest her soul, she passed away in 2018. She was on all types of medications.
Mm.
And if you know someone that's, I'm sure you got people, in your family or friends that are taking all these medications, and then they taking this medication to counter that medication.
Yes.
It's like, I never want to live like that.
Yeah.
I never want to live like that. And so if I can find natural ways of healing, then I'm all on board for that. And I'm all for helping others to do the same.
Yeah. And it's good to know that the patch helps everybody individually. So it really does work off of your stem cells. And each, all three of us, as we've shared just here in this segment, my experience is different from Nisha's, and Nisha's is different from Reggie's, but we've all had a good experience
Exactly.
with these patches. We've all had some results, or know somebody else who's used the patches who've had results. So I want to give you guys last words. What would you like to leave our audience with?
Well, I just want to say to everyone, just try the patch. Just don't second guess it, because the science, it's all in the science of how this patch works. And so just, trust the science. I mean, because David Schmidt, I mean, he has, like what Reggie said, a 20-year patent on this. And you can't get a patent if you can't prove that it works. And it definitely works. And so I can't tell you enough. Just try it.
Okay, Reggie?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, look, in a few minutes, I would tell people, because it's something that we've never seen, a lot of times people are skeptical and reluctant. But at the same time, we have a product that is literally changing people's lives. And we're talking about various health conditions, things like high blood pressure and diabetes, people who have lupus, autism, heart disease, problems sleeping. All these things that I've just mentioned, I am directly connected to people who have had a personal testimony that says that this product is absolutely amazing. So, it's not one of those things. It's not another one of those things. As a matter of fact, it's not a Me Too product. It's not something we've seen before. We can't compare it to anything. And sometimes that becomes the thing that prevents people from moving forward with this, is because they've never heard of it. But that is not something you want to do. So when you consider all your family members and the importance of their health and the importance of all our health, when you think about it, that's the number one thing in our life, in my opinion. It is the most important thing in my life. It far surpasses anything, including money. So at the end of the day, it is about helping as many people as we can have a better quality of life by doing something so simple and very affordable it's amazing. And you're going to want to share it with the world. I mean, there are 8 billion people on the planet. They all have stem cells. David Schmidt, the visionary, the founder of this company, says that we'll be in 1 billion households. So it is important for us to understand that this company came from a $20 million company to this year, just 5 years later, as a result of this one product, though it's a 20-year-old company. The company is now approaching $1 billion in a single year versus $20 million just 4 or 5 years ago. So I just want everyone to know it's not on trial. It is something that many doctors, medical doctors included, have joined us on this quest to take these patches to the world. So I'm excited about it. As you have my information, follow me as well as Nisha. Look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, and that's so good to know because, hey, as you said, your health is truly your wealth. So I want to thank both of you for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News on this Women and Wellness Wednesday. And hopefully I can have you guys back on again, and maybe somebody else to share their testimony about their experience with X39. So thank you again. And hopefully I'll see you guys soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashaki. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Yeah, guys. So definitely, check it out. It is LifeWave, and I am actually a distributor. So if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. I'm on X, Facebook, and YouTube. And right now, I'm actually going to play you guys a commercial that, tells a little bit about the patch.
A life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. With the energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look. At the speed of science. At longevity, at exhilaration, it's next level rejuvenation, taking well-being from the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
Yeah, so that is LifeWave. And I know I've been playing the commercial for a few weeks now, but I also am so grateful for Nisha and Reggie joining me so you guys can find out a little bit more about, well, what is this commercial and what is this about and what is this patch? And if you want to find out more, you can reach out to me, like I said, on either Facebook, X, or YouTube. And you can also email me at nonicmsllc@gmail.com. And if you want to find out more just about the product, you can go to lifewave.com/nonicmsllc. And thank you guys so much for joining us for this segment of Women in Wellness Wednesday. And I will see you right after this break.
The browsers of today are broken. They've been overtaken by a barrage of sneaky and annoying ads. trackers that follow your habits, and cookies that build profiles, and all sorts of other internet clutter that's taking precedence over the content that you want to see. In fact, these useless bytes can take up to a whopping 50% of page load times, with a third of it anxiously trying to learn more about you. To make matters worse, some ad blockers are even letting ads through when large advertisers pay them. But do you really want a leaky ad blocker? It's because of these very reasons that we developed Brave, a new browser that kicks internet crud to the curb and makes it faster, safer, and better to surf the web than your current browser. With Brave, everything you need is built right in. We integrated technology that automatically blocks trackers, annoying ads, and shields everything that can cramp your style and destruct your privacy. With it, you can expect increased speeds nearly 2 times faster on laptops and up to 4 times faster on mobile. And unlike any other browser, Brave allows you to support your favorite publishers with automatic micropayments, so it's a win-win for you and your favorite sites. To top it all off, Brave is open source, because we truly believe it's our web and we need to fix it together. So ask yourself this question: do you want a web browser made for the internet of today? If so, try Brave. It's faster, safer, and ad-free.
And we are back. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on Women in Wellness Wednesday. And we had a little bit of input during our segment, and Unc wanted to ask, where do we get the patch? And where you can get it, as I stated, is at www.lifewave.com/NoniCMS LLC. And if you guys want to know just a little bit more about the product, or if you have any questions about it, you can always message me on X, Facebook, or YouTube. And Unc says, we take all the pharmaceutical pills and we don't know the person or any information about the medicine that they tell us to take. So I'm all in. Well, thank you so much for that. And of course, you said, okay, but I hope you're able to get the information. And Unc, you have my information, so definitely reach out. And like I said, it is a good product for myself. You know, I do have scoliosis. I know you guys probably see me, I don't look like it, but I do have it. And, you know, there are days when I do have really severe pain. And so I've just been grateful for the patches to help me with that. And it's also, like I said, brought a lot of feeling in parts of my back, because I had back surgery years ago. So there are parts of my back that I'm like, oh, I didn't feel that before, or my back itches in certain places, and I'm like, wow, like there's a tingling feeling back there. So it's really, really awesome and really, really cool that there is something as non-invasive as the patch. And like I stated, you know, RFK, he actually has worn the patch, which is really, really cool. And he's the director of HHS. So I'm like, okay, if he's wearing it, then I know he's definitely looked into it and knows that it is a viable product. And I know a lot of us out there, we're trying to find ways to help us, you know, be healthier, right? Without all of the chemicals. That's what I'm trying to say. You know, everybody wants to do things that are a little bit more herbal, a little bit more natural, right? Because chemicals just tend to mask a problem, but they don't necessarily tend to help or deal with the problem. And because of the side effects, they can create worse problems. So this is definitely a product. There's nothing going in. It's literally just using the stem cells in your body to help you heal. So again, if you guys have any questions on it, just let me know. And now we're going to get into some more of this wonderful news. I wanted to check out all sides before I got into our last video. But let me see. Let me get that added to the stage. Why aren't you adding? Interesting. Okay. Let me try this. Oh, I got to remove some stuff from the stage. There we go. I was like, hey, where's my stuff? Okay. So the director of HHS, RFK Jr., to change vaccine injury compensation program. Now that's interesting because a lot of people don't realize it, but there is a vaccine court. There is compensation for people who have been harmed by certain vaccines. And I know people, they don't always know, right, the information behind that. And it's kind of interesting to me because for a while it was happening, and then there would be news stories. Oh, it doesn't exist. It's like, yeah, it actually does exist. Like you can literally just look it up. You can Google vaccine court and the information will come up. So our media, they definitely love to lie to us. So, the Health and Human Services Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., announced plans to fix the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, VICP, a program that provides compensation to people adversely affected by vaccines. For the details, Kennedy argued that the VICP process has devolved into a morass of inefficiency, favoritism, and outright corruption. I love it. I love it, y'all. Kennedy has not yet released his plan to reform VICP, but has said he wants to increase the statute of limitations and provide compensation for people harmed by COVID-19 vaccines via VICP, according to Politico. All right, y'all, it's on. It's on. Because, see, they kept using people as lab rats, literally, and letting these pharmaceutical companies just run amok. And I'm so grateful that RFK is in there and he's shutting a lot of this down. So the VICP was established in the 1980s as a way for patients who experience vaccine side effects to receive compensation from pharmaceutical companies without requiring these manufacturers to be negligent. Wow. So even if they got compensation, the pharmaceutical companies, without requiring these manufacturers to be negligent, so they would pay people off, but they never had to say that they were derelict in their duty, basically. Yeah, we hurt you, we harmed you, we're going to pay you off, but we're not going to say our product isn't good because we still want to make money. That's just disgusting to me, but that's the system we're in. So it says how the media covered it. CNN Left focused on Kennedy's past criticisms of the VICP and his connections with the vaccine skeptical Children's Health Defense and highlighted concerns that he might further an anti-vaccine agenda and potentially promote unfounded theories about vaccines. You know, I definitely want to say, after the Tuskegee experiment alone, that alone, if anybody looks it up, caused enough concern about vaccines and how evil people were in giving people and injecting them with a deadly, STD and just literally watching them die to see how they would die. That's what they've done to people. Like they took the stem cells from this one woman and they took her stem cells and they used them, and they're actually used in vaccines because they replicate outside of the human body. And they couldn't figure out what was causing her cancer. But when they tested her cells and they saw that her cells replicate, they just let her die. Yeah. And they also use fetal human tissue. They use different types of mercury. They use all kinds of things. They don't show you the little pamphlet on the side of the vial. They just give you a fact sheet. The fact sheet is not what's in the vaccine. There's a little piece of paper on next to the vial. So if you ever take your children to get vaccinated or they're asking you, just say, I want to see the paperwork on next to the vial. And they might tell you, well, we can't show you that. Be like, okay, do you want to go to jail? Do you want to go to prison? Do you want me to sue you for everything you don't have? Show it to me now, or we can go to court. You got choices. Because they actually have to allow you to see it. Because, see, that's where all of the actual side effects are. It's on the document next to the vial. It's not in the fact sheet. We are still lab rats that they are using to inject poison in. It is just a thing. It is what it is. So the Hill, which is center, acknowledged and provided support for Kennedy's claim that the program needs modernization. It also suggested that changes might undermine the program entirely and reduce access to childhood vaccines. The report noted Kennedy's ability to add new injuries like autism to the list of compensatable injuries. I'm so grateful for that because it went from like one in like almost close to like 1 million or something ridiculous that people had autism. Now it's like 1 in less than 50. And it's our boys suffering mostly because of the blood-brain barrier. Yeah, our babies are suffering more. But they don't care because they just want to make money. It's just so sad. I'm so grateful that RFK is doing what he's doing. So Newsmax on the right framed the decision as a vital step in rebuilding public trust in the vaccine program. Very true. The article quoted Kennedy describing the VICP system as a quagmire for parents and children and argued that the VICP currently provides no incentive to companies to make vaccines safer because they can't be sued, thanks to the 1986 White House and Congress. He's not wrong there. And that's what happened. It was crazy. They were just allowed to do whatever they wanted to do. So sad. So with that, we're going to take a quick little break, and I will see you guys on the other side. And we are back, and I've got another video to share with you guys, and I found this very interesting.
And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks so much for being with us here. So let's keep it moving with more of these top headlines. This was an exclusive to Fox News Digital yesterday. We weren't able to get to it yesterday. We want to dive deep into it today here. So this is what we know. Attorney General Pam Bondi directing her staff to act on the criminal referral from Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard related to the alleged conspiracy to tie President Trump to Russia, and the Department of Justice is now opening a grand jury investigation into the matter. So Bondi personally ordered an unnamed federal prosecutor to initiate legal proceedings. The prosecutor is expected to present department evidence to a grand jury, which would allow the department to secure a potential indictment here. That's according to a letter from Bondi reviewed by Fox News Digital and a source familiar with the investigation. Now, a DOJ spokesperson declined to comment on the report of an investigation, but said Bondi is taking the referral from Gabbard, quote unquote, very seriously. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about how grand juries work here. Let's do that with our friend at the Heritage Foundation, senior legal fellow, Zach Smith. He joins me. Zach, good to see you here. I know you've been following this very, very closely. It's 2025. We're still talking about the probe into alleged Russian collusion. We know how the president feels about that. And he, of course, sailed through in the 2024 election, back to the White House, and now he is having those in his administration look back into it. Why?
Well, thanks for having me on the show this evening, Andrew. Look, I think the president, the Justice Department, they're interested in getting to the bottom of exactly what happened, why the FBI in particular appeared to rely on very dubious information to launch a very expansive investigation into President Trump and those who are working for him. Now, as you mentioned, Fox News Digital first reported that AG Bondi had initiated this investigation, but at least publicly so far, the DOJ is not commenting on whether and to what extent the DOJ is looking into these allegations. And I think it's important for your viewers to understand that grand jury investigations, grand jury proceedings, by their nature, are secret. And that's the case in essentially every grand jury investigation that's undertaken, particularly those at the federal level. And there's a number of practical and legal reasons why that is the case. But I would suspect much of this work will be done behind the scenes. Much we know publicly will likely be delved into more in depth, often maybe looking at documents that are still classified, those sorts of things. But it certainly seems clear there are a lot of problematic areas that this grand jury, if it is convened, will need to look into.
So, Zach, is this in lieu of a special counsel being appointed by Bondi? Remember, that was kind of in the atmosphere last week. Right. So far, it doesn't look like that's going to happen, but now we know this is happening. So are we not going to get a special counsel into this?
Well, again, we don't know a lot of what is happening behind the scenes at the Justice Department, but keep in mind the last special counsel we saw, Jack Smith, there were very real questions about whether he was constitutionally appointed. Right. And so the fact is, if AG Bondi referred this to a U.S. attorney, that helps head off some of those constitutional questions.
So a grand jury, what is it who is it comprised of, I should say?
Yeah, so a grand jury is very different from what we know as a petite jury, what you normally think of when you see Law and Order or some of those other trial shows. It is not an adversarial proceeding in front of a grand jury. It's drawn from members of the community. There's usually 16 to 23 members, and there is no defense attorney in with the grand jury. There is no judge in with the grand jury. Essentially, it is the prosecutor, the witnesses, a court reporter, and the grand jurors themselves. And the purpose of a grand jury is really twofold. It's to help the government investigate crimes. So witnesses can be subpoenaed, documents can be subpoenaed, people can be compelled to come in and testify without their lawyers being in the room with them. Of course, witnesses can invoke their Fifth Amendment privilege still. And then it is also constitutionally required that before someone can be charged at the federal level with a felony offense, the grand jury has to issue an indictment. So grand juries play a pivotal role in our criminal justice system, albeit one that is often behind the scenes.
To bring an indictment, though, do you need to have, probable cause, or does it need to be beyond a reasonable doubt here? I just want to go into the claims that Tulsi Gabbard is making, that former President Obama and his intelligence officials allegedly promoted a quote-unquote contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win. That was the conclusion of the intelligence community at the time, that Moscow, Putin, they wanted Trump in the White House. They didn't want Hillary Clinton in the White House. Is the grand jury, or those who comprise the grand jury, are they going to have to rebut that claim?
Well, I think Tulsi Gabbard might frame the conclusion slightly differently. I believe she has said that the Russian operation, the goal of that operation was to simply cast doubt in general on the efficacy of American democracy, the American election. The grand jury, in order to issue an indictment, only needs to find probable cause. That's a lower standard than beyond a reasonable doubt. Once an indictment based on probable cause is issued, then if that case goes to trial, in order for the government to get a conviction, then they would need to meet that much higher burden of proof of proving the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, in terms of who may be brought into this potential grand jury proceeding, again, we don't know. We can only speculate. Certainly, we've heard President Trump express some frustration with former President Obama. I think it's unlikely that former President Obama, would be charged in this. But many people are looking at other individuals like James Comey, John Brennan, James Clapper, and others who could potentially be subjected to criminal charges, particularly as it relates to perjury or false statements based on prior testimony they've given.
Yeah, I was going to ask next kind of what the potential crimes we are looking at here as far as some of these allegations go. You kind of elucidated that. Last question, though, Zach. A lot of this is going to involve classified information. What type of setting can a grand jury observe and look at and witness some of that very information? Don't you need a security clearance for that?
Yeah, I suspect security will be very tight. Some of that information may need to be reviewed in what's known as a SCIF. That's a very secure area to review some of these documents. But what I will say, Andrew, is what we've seen over the past several weeks and months is an effort to bring to light as much information as possible. Not only has Tulsi Gabbard declassified some of the information that was previously behind lock and key, we've also seen efforts to declassify the appendix to John Durham's report. You may remember he had the unclassified report he originally issued, and yet there was still this classified appendix that contained more details, more original documents. That has now been declassified as well. And I suspect many of those efforts to move much of this information and many of these documents into the declassified realm will help expedite any potential investigation or criminal proceedings that may take place.
All right. Zach Smith there at the Heritage Foundation. Zach, always good to see you. You're so helpful in helping us make sense. These pretty complicated stories, we'll definitely be speaking about it soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me on. Take care.
Yeah.
And welcome back to proceedings. The prosecutor is...
Sorry about that. Yeah, I just wanted you guys to see that because, for that to go to a grand jury, it's pretty serious, right? When they've done the special counsels, and this is just my opinion, what I've seen from the special counsels, we spend millions of dollars on all this investigation and all this and that, and then they're in the, they're in the news, and at the end of the day, what are we getting? I mean, right now, they're actually looking at the special investigator. I think his name was Jack Smith. They're investigating him. How are you going to investigate the special prosecutor or whatever? I was like, wow, okay. So that's happening. So I'm kind of glad that they're going about it in this route because the grand jury, what they can do, and what I didn't hear that gentleman say, but in typical grand juries, they can say, yes, we have found this information to be viable and, we want to see charges brought based on X, Y, and Z or whatever. So they can actually recommend charges being brought. So to me, that's the biggest difference between having a special investigator or prosecutor and having a grand jury, because the grand jury definitely has more teeth because you cannot say that it is political or biased, right? Because as he said, it's like 16 to 23 people. It's not just, 12 jurors. And that's enough people to really make a strong determination if something has been going on that shouldn't be going on. And Sean AI, thank you so much for reposting the stream. I definitely had another article I wanted to squeeze in, and this is the Gates Foundation. Gates is weird. It's very interesting. So they pledged $2.5 billion to women's health research. So the Gates Foundation has committed to spend $2.5 billion over the next 5 years on research for women's health issues such as menopause and preeclampsia. Preeclampsia is something that definitely happens during pregnancy, and what it is, it's kind of like swelling of the feet and hands. It's where your body can't properly release water, basically. And like I said, it predominantly happens during pregnancy. So the details, the investment will focus on obstetric care and maternal immunization, maternal health and nutrition, genealogical and menstrual health, contraceptive innovation, and sexually transmitted infections. Now, here's the deal. All that stuff relates to depopulation. All of it. He that's what he's already said it in some other videos, that he's okay with depopulating the planet, and now he wants to do research. Okay. So the aim is to kickstart research, develop products, and ensure equitable access to them worldwide. The foundation's head of gender equality, here we go, Dr. Anita Zadi acknowledged that the $2.5 billion was a drop in the bucket compared with what is needed and called on others to step in, including the private sector, philanthropists, and governments. Well, if you're talking about doing a worldwide, okay, I can understand that being a drop in the bucket. But a lot of this money is a slush fund, and it gets circumvented right back to his other foundations so he can stay paid. He's got the R&D foundations that this $2.5 billion is going to go to. And then that $2.5 billion is going to go to other research facilities that he owns, by the way. So the money always comes back around to where he is. And he doesn't have to pay taxes because it's a donation. Yeah, it's everything for me with him is extremely nefarious. He got off on the wrong foot, and it stayed that way for me. So women's health continues to be ignored, underfunded, and sidelined. Too many women still die from preventable causes or live in poor health, founder Bill Gates said in a statement. Very true. That must change. Dr. Reza Aslandar, director of the maternal, newborn, child nutrition, and health sector of the Gates Foundation, said, with some sadness, I say it's the largest sort of cumulative investment in women's health R&D, but the overall investment in this area needs to be substantially greater. But at the end of the day, who they don't help are Black women predominantly. And the other minorities, they're considered white. So they do look into how things affect them as compared to Black women. It is what it is. You don't want to have to say the quiet part out loud, but it is what it is. So for context, according to a recent study, despite women making up 51% of the world's population, they only make up 40% of the participants in clinical trials for issues that primarily impacted women. And this is how the media covered it. Axios, which leans left bias, highlighted specific Boston area institutions receiving funding, while The Hill center bias and Reuters center bias focused more on the overall necessity of the commitment for women's health, with particular emphasis on the historical neglect of women's health issues. The consensus across outlets on the left and center was the acknowledgement that the pledge amount, despite being significant, is not sufficient to fully address the gap in women's health research and care. However, all sides did not find coverage from any outlets on the right. And here's my thing, $2.5 billion, focus on America. But see, you're trying to focus on the world overall. You're not really trying to focus on America. That's why the $2.5 billion is so small. But at the same time, I'm like, if you can't do it with $2.5 billion, like, what are we talking about? Really? You $2.5 billion, not million, not 250,000, $2.5 billion, and they're fussing. Figure it out. That's all I'm saying. And don't have a salary of $500,000 a year. That's what I'm saying. In the administrative office, with the corner office, shuffling some papers around because you're bored 8 hours a day, not in the lab. That's all I'm saying. Like, a lot of this money goes to administrative costs. It doesn't go to where it's supposed to go. So what I would love to see is an audit of where this money is supposed to go and why you're fussing that it's not enough. Just saying. So with that, I want to thank you guys for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News on this Women and Wellness Wednesday. And I will not be on air this Thursday and Friday, taking a little bit of time off. I will be back on Monday. So I will leave this rolling. This particular episode, it will stay up until Monday. But I want to thank you guys, as always, for being with me here on Unfiltered Vision News. So remember to stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you on the next one.
for that.